Today's episode details the massacres of Tutsis in Gisenyi sector of Rubavu district, the birthplace of President Habyarimana and many members of his Akazu government who were at the forefront of the hate politics in Rwanda. April 30th, 1994. Massacres perpetrated against the Tutsi in the former Gisenyi, Cyangugu, Butare and Kigali prefectures. The Gisenyi Genocide Memorial Site is located in Ruliba village, Rubavu Cell, Gisenyi sector in Rubavu district. The area was called Commune Rouge during the genocide. The hatred towards Tutsis in the region started several years back, especially because President Habyarimana originated from there. Several other political and military officials in the Akazu circle, a network of individuals close to Habyarimana, mainly from his Hutu clan, were also from Gisenyi. The massacres in that area were preceded by extended propaganda, abusive language, insults, hatred, and everything else that led to the extermination of Tutsis, all of which was published by Kangura newspaper, with its chief editor Hassan Ngeze from Nyakabungo, Gisenyi, Rubavu, and he was also one of the strong Hutu extremists. In 1990, when the liberation struggle started, Tutsis from the former Mutura and Rwerere communes in Ibigogwe, those from Kayove, Nyamyumba, Kibirira, currently in Ngororero district communes, were gradually killed and accused of being Inkotanyi accomplices, and their bodies were dumped in the pits that had been already excavated in Gisenyi cemetery as part of the destruction of evidence. Some others were secretly killed in Gisenyi prison and thrown in the above-mentioned pits. Many Tutsis were killed in the city of Gisenyi during the genocide, in their homes, and others were taken near the pit excavated in Gisenyi cemetery to be killed and thrown there. Colonel Senjumva Anatol, who was in charge of the Gisenyi military base, played a key role in speeding up the implementation of the genocide in Gisenyi. He was from Satinsky commune in Gisenyi prefecture. Since 1990, Colonel Anatol Senjumva, Colonel Theoneste Bagosora, Aloys Nabakuze, Joseph Nzirorera had produced a plot to exterminate Tutsis in Gisenyi prefecture. They started by disseminating hatred, causing riots, training Interahamwe, handing over guns, preparing Tutsi lists, and killing Tutsis from Gisenyi and Ruhengeri communes. In Gisenyi, Anatole Nsengiyumva, Bagosora, Ntabakuze, and Nzirorera had formed a gang of killers consisting of Omar Serushago, Bernard Munyagishari, Mabuye, Barnabe Samvura, and Thomas Mugiraneza. On the night of April 6, 1994 to April 7, 1994, Colonel Nsengiyumva Anatole held a meeting at Gisenyi military camp to polish the genocide plans. It was attended by soldiers from Gisenyi Gendarmerie and senior officials of Interahamwe and CDR. Colonel Nsengiyumva instructed them to give guns to Interahamwe and set up roadblocks everywhere in Gisenyi. On April 7, 1994, another meeting was held at the former market of Gisenyi. Anatole Nsengiyumva ordered Interahamwe to start killing Tutsis, and they went from house to house. A statement from the Ministry of Defense had ordered all residents to stay home and no one could get out except soldiers in Interahamwe who were killing Tutsis wherever they passed. Colonel Nsengiyumva Anatole ordered the establishment of strong roadblocks on the border between Rwanda and Zaire, current-day DR Congo, so that no one could cross the border to Zaire. The killings were led by Colonel Anatole Nsengiyumva, along with Major François Uimana, Second Lieutenant Fidel Udahemuka, Second Lieutenant Abel Rwasa, and Interahamwe led by Bernard Munyagishari, Omar Serushago, Councillor Faziri, and Byahi sector councillor. Colonel Anatole drove around Gisenyi to monitor how the killings were taking place, asking Interahamwe at the roadblocks how the so-called work was being done and how they were killing Tutsis. Major Uimana François Xavier patrolled the area and monitored how the massacres of Tutsis were taking place. The Tutsis who had lived near the barracks and the hospital were the first to be killed. The corpses were scattered everywhere and vehicles were picking them to throw them in the pits excavated at the Commune Rouge. On April 20th, 1994, killers led by Omar Serushago, Bernard Munyagishari, and Thomas Mugiraneza attacked the Saint-Pierre Monastery. Those who had taken refuge there, including Felicite Niyitegeka, were taken to the Commune Rouge for execution. Tutsis who were hiding in Saint-Fidèle School, along with others who were in Rwandex, were killed under the supervision of Habimana Jean-Pierre, alias Mustafa, who currently lives in Belgium. On April 30th, 1994, a truck with loudspeakers passed in Gisenyi town, calling upon all Tutsis to come out of hiding because peace had been restored and no Tutsi would be killed again. All those who came out of their hiding places were killed at Commune Rouge. At the forefront of the killings were Colonel Anatole Nsengiyumva, Major François Uwimana, Second Lieutenant Fidel Udahemuka, Second Lieutenant Abel Rwasa, Prefect Dr. Zirimwabagabo Charles, Sous-Préfet Rukabukira and Bikumbi, Hassan Ngeze, Barnabe Samvura, Bernard Munyagishari, Omar Serushago, Councillor Fazili, and Councillor of Byahi, together with citizens led by Interahamwe called Habimana Jean-Pierre alias Mustafa, who fled to Belgium. Colonel Anatole Nsengiyumva was convicted of genocide crimes by the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, ICTR, and sentenced to life imprisonment, which was later reduced to 15 years on appeal. Omar Serushago was convicted of genocide by the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, ICTR. He pleaded guilty to genocide crimes and sentenced to 15 years in prison. Bernard Munyagishari was extradited to Rwanda by the International Tribunal for Rwanda, and Rwanda courts convicted him of genocide crimes and sentenced him to life imprisonment. In 2003, Hassan Ngeze was sentenced to life in prison after being convicted of genocide and other crimes against humanity. And in 2007, the sentence was reduced on appeal. These reductions of sentences on appeal are the results of poor functioning of the ICTR under the presidency of Judge Theodore Meron. On the morning of April 7, 1994, gendarmerie trucks were circulating in Mibirizi area without an apparent reason. They had huge numbers of gendarmes. They would circulate, going back and forth. The councillors immediately ordered that no one is allowed to leave home so that no one would flee the country. As it had happened back in 1963, 1973, Tutsis from Mibirizi fled to the parish, thinking that they would survive. From April 8, 1994, to 10th April 1994, around 8,000 Tutsis arrived at Mibirizi parish with their cows. On April 10th, 1994, many Interahamwe led by a soldier called Dominique launched an attack that seemed to spy on the Tutsi power and their numbers. They used stones and other traditional weapons and retaliated the attacks. On April 12, 1994, at around 10 a.m., another attack led by Dominique accompanied a huge number of Hutus took off from a place called Kungoro near the parish and headed to Mibirizi parish. They were armed with spears, bows, and Dominique had grenades. The Tutsis fought back against this attack and defeated it with stones. After realizing that they were defeated, Dominique threw grenades among them and many were injured, including Dushimimana Concorde, who later died. On April 14, 1994, around 3 p.m., many Hutus reorganized and attacked refugees at Mibirizi parish. The attack was more violent than before. The killers were from near the parish at Ngoro, others from Runyanzovu, Munyinya, Muhanga, Chato, and elsewhere. The Tutsis also tried their best and retaliated the attack. A serial killer named Kaibanda from Kaboza, who was also known for killing many Tutsis, threw grenades among them. One grenade immediately killed Dominique Sabimana, a businessman at Ngoro, and killed others who were around him. The killers were again defeated and they ran away. On April 18, 1994, is a day that will never be forgotten in the history of Tutsis who had taken refuge at Mibirizi. 3 major attacks in one day took the lives of thousands of Tutsis in Mibirizi. Around 10 a.m., killers attacked Tutsis but were defeated after killing a small number of them. Killers returned to Ngoro to reorganize and to get new instructions. At around 2 p.m., the killers attacked Tutsis at the parish again in a very big number and threw grenades among them and killed many Tutsis. At last, the killers were also defeated and retaliated. Around 3 p.m., former Sous-Préfet Theodore Munyangabe arrived in Mibirizi with other people. He immediately called on Tutsis to go back inside so that he could hold talks with the killers to find a solution and stop the fighting. Tutsis did not realize it was a trap. As they were about to enter, thousands of murderers immediately surrounded the area, threw grenades, others killed with swords, spears, and they killed anyone they met. Some gunmen had climbed trees around Mibirizi parish so that they could shoot properly those they wanted to exterminate. The attackers had many guns and grenades and Tutsis could not defend themselves anymore. A large number of Tutsis were killed in various places. On April 20th, 1994, the killers, in collaboration with gendarmes, who were supposed to protect Tutsi refugees at the parish, they gathered all the remaining Tutsis in the courtyard of the parish. They brought a list and called out the names of anyone they wanted. More than 100 Tutsis were summoned on that day, and they were taken to the killers who were waiting for them with swords, clubs, machetes, and spears. The killers left dead bodies lying around and came to bury them the next day. Among the detainees on that day was a woman who was a teacher called Angela. On April 20th, 1994, after torturing those they had called on the list, killers went to Mibirizi Hospital to kill Tutsi doctors and nurses who were on duty and Tutsi patients in the hospital. On April 30th, 1994, few Tutsis who had survived were killed. The chief of Interahamwe in that region, Yusuf Munyakazi, and his troops, who had just returned from killing Tutsis in Shangi, who had gone to provide support, on their way home, he decided to pass by Mibirizi to finish off any possible survivors. They were transported by a Daihatsu car and arrived at around 5 p.m. and killed about 60 Tutsis with swords, and after they left bodies scattered in front of the parish. On May 25th, 1994, the remaining 500 Tutsis, including the elderly, women, and injured, were packed in buses and taken to Nyarushishi. Some of the prominent killers who planned and participated in the attacks at Mibirizi were the following. Banditse Edouard, genocide planner. He was a businessman in Kamembe, but he had moved to Mibirizi. He issued instructions, he had guns, and meetings were held in his bar. Sous-Préfet Theodore Munyangabe. Dominique, a reservist who had deserted the army, but he was still equipped with his guns. Somaire Celestin, a prominent Interahamwe and was a teacher at Mibirizi. He hated Tutsis. Munyoni Vianney, a police officer. He killed many Tutsis in the attacks of April 18th, 1994. Rwabukera Fabien, Interahamwe who lived in Kigali, but he was born in Mibirizi. Kaibanda, a prominent Interahamwe, he killed Tutsis using grenades during various attacks. Councillor of Mibirizi sector, Ndagijimana Pacome. He organized attacks and attended meetings that falsely accused Tutsis of instigating insecurity. Chato sector councillor, Gakwaya Vianney, who also led the attacks. Gendarmes who were at the parish. The guns they were given to protect Tutsis were instead used to kill them during the attacks of April 18th, 1994. Somaire Richard, he was a teacher at Apemi. Gerard Ndagijimana worked in Mibirizi Hospital and was very influential to the killers. Ruchera Tabaro Theodore from Uinteko, he led the attacks which searched for Tutsis from Uinteko who had taken refuge at Mibirizi. They hunted for Senuma, and after killing him, they took his shoes to show his relatives that they had killed him. Ruchera Tabaro was sentenced to life imprisonment by a Swedish court. Many Tutsis who had taken refuge in Ngoma Parish, located in Ngoma Sector, Huye District, were killed on April 30th, 1994. When the massacres started, Tutsis who lived in Matsyazo and Ngoma, who had survived killings elsewhere, fled to Ngoma Parish. They included many children, young and old, who survived the attacks of soldiers from Ngoma military base, commanded by Lieutenant Ildefonse Hategekimana, gendarme, and Interahamwe. On the 29th, Interahamwe soldiers who camped at the Electrogas roadblock attacked the Tutsis at the parish. The soldiers entered to check on the number of refugees, falsely telling them that they had come to ensure their security. On April 30th, 1994, around 9 a.m., a major attack at Ngoma Parish led by Lieutenant Hategekimana Ildefonse and Second Lieutenant Fabien Niyonheze forced their entrance in the church and started killing Tutsis, while others were killed outside. There had been extreme killings, such as grabbing a child and smashing them to their death on the road, and others would hit him with clubs and machetes. Girls were also raped before being killed. At the forefront of the killings was Lieutenant Hategekimana Ildefonse, who was tried by the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda and sentenced to life imprisonment. Gatera, Murekezi Fils. Donati, Vianney from Kibuye, a businessman at the 4th Street. Abdullah from Gisquaire area. Many soldiers. Tony, the sons of Chiburugutu, commander of the airport. Ngoma Sector Councillor Habimana Jacques, and other Interahamwe militia. Among the crimes for which Hategekimana was convicted include the murder of Salome Mjawayezu and her cousins Alice Mukargwesa and Jacqueline Mukaburasa, the rape of Nura Sezirahiga, as well as the massacres perpetrated in the parish of Ngoma and at the Maison Généralice of Benebichira. Many Tutsis, including those from the families of some of Benebichira's sisters, had taken refuge at Benebichira Center in Butare, Taba, from April 14, 1994. After the assassination of Professor Karenzi, a former lecturer at the National University of Rwanda, UNR, on April 21, 1994, his children and others who had taken refuge at his house fled to Benebichira Center. The children were closely monitored by Professor Vincent Nsengimana, who was teaching with Karenzi at UNR, and Colonel Tarsis Muvunyi. Prior to the assassination of Professor Karenzi, Nsengimana and other genocide organizers at UNR had asked Tutsi lecturers to provide a list of all the people they were staying with so that they can help them to flee. On April 30th, 1994, an attack led by Captain Nizeyimana Ildefonse from ISO, including Lieutenant Hategekimana Ildefonse, who was in charge of the Ngoma military base, Lieutenant Ndayambaje and Lieutenant Ngendahimana, and other Interahamwe attacked Tutsis who had taken refuge at the Benebikira Center, located at Itaba in Butare town. Hategekimana first selected those to be killed and took them to Kabutare and Groupe Scolaire, where they were killed. The attackers were armed with guns and other traditional weapons like clubs, machetes, and jerrycans full of petrol. At the forefront of the killings were Captain Nizeyimana Ildefonse, Lieutenant Hategekimana Ildefonse, Lieutenant Ndayambaje, Lieutenant Ngendahimana, and Vincent Nsengimana and other Interahamwe. Vincent Nsengimana was convicted of genocide crimes by a Belgian court and sentenced to 12 years in prison. Captain Ildefonse Nizeyimana and Lieutenant Ildefonse Hategekimana were convicted of genocide crimes by the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, ICTR. Captain Nizeyimana Ildefonse was sentenced to 35 years in prison, while Lieutenant Hategekimana was sentenced to life imprisonment. On April 22nd, 1994, Tutsis who had survived the killings in the mountains, sorghum plantations, in the churches, and in other parts of Bugesera started to enter into the papyrus swamps because it was the only place they could find a hiding place. However, with the help of aeroplanes, which checked every day to see whereabouts of many Tutsis, they got the information that many Tutsis were in the swamps, and they prepared a plan to massacre them. In the first days, they would attack and kill a few because they were initially afraid to go far into the papyrus swamps, where you couldn't even see a person hiding near you. On April 30th, many Tutsis were massacred in the swamp named CND, separating Ntarama, Rurindo, and Mugina in Gitarama. Interahamwe and soldiers from different parts of the country, Gako, Njenda, and Gashola military bases, Gicumbi, Gikomero, Mbogo, Nyamabuye, and other parts of Gitarama, Mugina, and elsewhere gathered. In addition, Burundian refugees from Ruhuha and Nyacyonga came with the Natrocom buses in huge numbers, shouting and whistling. When they all arrived, they formed groups of attackers and surrounded the papyrus swamp. There were also people from Kanzenze, Rurindo, and Musenyi sector that surrounded the swamp, and others on the Ntarama side. They attacked and killed them from around 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. and only stopped because some of them were saying that they were coming from afar and they had to walk long hours to get home. Soldiers shot and threw bombs in the swamp, and Interahamwe with machetes, spears, clubs with nails, swords, and other traditional weapons killed them because they were not able to run in the swamp. Soldiers and Interahamwe searched Tutsis that they had already killed and took their clothes away. They raped girls before killing them by placing them in a little dry space or on top of the papyrus plants that they had cut, and they would finish up by killing them, torturing them, inserting sharp sticks in their private parts, and leaving them naked. The attacks in the papyrus swamps were led by the commander-in-chief of Gako military base, Colonel Phineas Munyarugarama, the former sous-prefet of Kanazi, Gasana Juma, Gatanazi Bernard, who was the mayor of Kanzenze commune, Karerangabo Vincent, who was the inspector, Nsabyumuganwa, the former director of Chugaro Primary School, Bizimana, former principal of Nyamata Primary School, Pastor Winkindi Jean, Gasharangwanzi Sylvestre, a soldier named Sebugingo, Bizimungu, who was a police officer, and others. Thank you for listening to another episode of Kwibuka Podcast. As always, make sure you leave us a review, sharing what you like about the podcast, and share with others who would be interested in listening.